Okay, right, lovely. Okay, so I dare say this is related to what Steve said in the keynote. Definitely links to inappropriate assessment, but this is what we have tried to do about it. So just to give you some background, I am the level 1 tutor in biosciences, and it was clear that there was an achievement gap in progression for our level 1 students who came from non-A-level backgrounds. And in the worst cases, it was BTEC and then other cohorts like Access. We have a Department of Lifelong Learning, DLL. So these were largely mature students returning to education, and then other foundation years. And fair to say that the foundation years were a mixed bag, and the higher proportion of coursework, the less prepared they were for exam-based assessment, logically. I'm not going to deal with any of the intersectionality, but of course there was a large degree of widening participation in this cohort with lots of other issues underlying. So I met with all the students who failed or failed to progress, and it was clear that there were actually two pools of attention that was needed. One was on a pastoral level and the other academic. So what was clear is that there was poor metacognition in this group, but they really didn't know how to address it. They weren't engaging with all of the support that we have. So we have a lot of support in biosciences and the university, but to a large extent, they weren't engaging with that. And quite a few of them reported to me that there were issues with isolation. So they'd come to university and they had that imposter syndrome that we know exists, and they were feeling really uncomfortable on their course and therefore quite isolated. So we set about doing something about that. With regard to the exam experience gap, if you like, what some of the issues were poor time management and organisation. They reported constantly that they didn't know how to take effective lecture notes, and if they did have lecture notes, they spent endless hours writing, rewriting, putting them in lovely colours, making flashcards and things like that, but largely their learning was quite passive. And if they did engage with questioning themselves, it was at the level of multiple choice questions. They have access to Peerwise, where students create their own MCQs, and they were largely trying to question spot rather than really revising for understanding. And there was quite poor self-monitoring, so they weren't able to see where they needed to concentrate their efforts and what they already knew. So we started a program called Success at Sheffield because we were trying to make it a very positive thing. So I'd been trying to support the students on a one-to-one basis and upskill them and signposting the levels of academic support that we already have, but it was clear that we needed more. So I asked a colleague to collaborate with me and try to put these skills in place with this particular cohort. And it's fair to say that their coursework modules were usually good. So they were passing coursework, that was their skill set. And we were trying to scaffold that transition to exam-based testing that they were going to be exposed to. And also tell them about the hidden curriculum. So one of the things that non-A-level students aren't aware of is that layer that A-level students get from teachers seamlessly, the testing and the retesting on a weekly basis, and really starting to assess their own learning very, very well. So that when they come to university, they're so skilled at that, they don't even see that they have that skill, they just do it instantly. And that's what these cohorts of students don't have. So we're trying to, on the pastoral side, build community, increasing their sense of belonging, because this is something that had reported to us, and that reduce the isolation, improve their well-being as a result of that and confidence, and try to reduce some of the barriers that were stopping them engage with the services. And then along the lines of developing their metacognition, trying to teach them good time management and really bring home the expectations in HE, teach them how to take effective lecture notes, and try to get across that there's more than one way to do this, but to find something effective for them by showing them various ways. And then transition to learning for understanding, so that they weren't trying to question spot and give them other effective revision strategies and that self-assessment, that important self-assessment. So I've just put red, amber, green, RAG rating here because this is something that A-level students do so effectively and really helps at university. So the approach that we had, I mentioned my colleague who's been fantastic, Paul Gakali, and we also recruited a GTA to help us give the student perspective, perhaps break down some of those barriers of two middle-aged staff telling students what to do again. And we knew that she had a really genuine interest in education because she'd taken an education capstone project. So she really wanted to help. So the approach we took was that we created a pre-arrival website with some preparatory tasks so that students kind of hit the ground running when they got here. We had a weekly timetabled session trying to put these theories into practice, and because we had built-in time to apply that, and then supported by a VLE to capture all the resources and advice, much the same as a usual module, with lots of signposting to the support available and encouragement to take it up. We also took student feedback and gave them a mock exam in week 11 of semester 1. So some of the students, the large majority of students actually did not access that pre-arrival website and complete the tasks. So this journey really did begin in week 1, and I'll return to that point a bit later because it's just a bit too late. So we realised that some didn't see the value or the urgency, so they didn't attend these sessions, and if they did attend, many were reluctant to expose their weaknesses. So I mentioned the imposter syndrome earlier, and students really don't like to feel like they can't do something in front of other people. So we've had to be really careful supporting students while they develop these skills. And with regard to the VLE, because we can see how many times they visit this site, what we found was that the largest engagement was with quick fixes. So we actually had an area of quick fixes, which was supposed to be additionality, and they were going there a lot without really visiting the more meaningful things. On the positive side, lots did engage and feel part of a community. They therefore reported increased confidence and a sense of belonging, and lots of them who sat the exam said it gave them an early wake-up call for what they needed to do for the real exams in January. And the outcome of that is that we had a 12% decrease in multiple failed exams in January of this cohort. And then in semester 2, what we discovered as the teaching team was that a really, really practical approach was needed. There was no point in telling them why they were doing something. We had to teach them how to do it, first of all, give them a recipe, and then once that was embedded, tell them about why and metacognition a bit later. We also created a flow chart so they could see their own development and why they were doing things. And we added a section on our VLE for student tips. So for students for whom this had worked in semester 1, what particularly had worked for them, why they'd engage with things, and we had a student portion. And then we added additional bits that it was clear that they needed. So couching about the pre-lecture prep. So lots of successful students were looking at the lectures beforehand, kind of breaking down some of the elements that they might find most challenging, and they were able to follow the lectures better because they'd done that. We also, for those who were still having an issue with managing themselves, time management and task management, we showed them how to use Google Calendar. We actually took them through it, and then how to create scaffolded questions to build their own learning actively. And one staff member was able to work with students in second semester more intensively. We're in our second year now, and we have distilled what we think are the best elements of the course, and we delivered that intensively in induction week. And we felt that was really important because actually, if you're teaching these skills as they're needing them, then they've almost missed the boat. So by delivering a large portion of this course intensively in induction week every day, they should have the foundational skills in place by week 1 to really engage with the lectures a lot more. We've also, like our other modules, we do attendance monitoring, which has helped with the attendance. And I've also embedded this year a study buddy program where they can volunteer to join up with either one person or several people to form a study group alongside peer assisted learning, which was already in place where our second years help our first years. We scheduled the mock exam much earlier, trying to give that wake-up call much earlier, avoiding coursework, which unfortunately had been an issue the year before. And we gave the carrot that if they got over 60%, they could unenroll, and half of them subsequently did. So we've seen either further achievement gains, and we are now working with a really small intensive group in semester 2, concentrating on revising for understanding and giving them some practice. I'm still interviewing because I'm still the first year tutor, trying to understand the barriers that some students still have, and providing additional tools. So if they haven't managed to really get to grips with self-assessment, giving them a tool that helps them do that. Now, where we are now is that we have these recipes, these study habit recipes, and they've been so successful. And some of our other students, A-level students, have heard about this course and want to be involved. So we've made a self-guided platform where they can take themselves through as well. And what Paul has found, who's the second year tutor, he's found that the progression data for level 2 is much improved in this cohort as well. So these skills really are going through with the students. Engineering are going to apply the process this year to their students, and this is the really good bit that I'm loving, is the student testimonials, who these students are willing to tell other students how it's helped them. So we still have some challenges, that small cohort of disengaged students who don't hear the message because they're not attending or they don't catch up via the self-guided platform. Some have stepped up and are doing more, really buying into the expectations, but not enough. And some still don't think they need the programme, which is how I hope to use the student testimonials, so that if they're not listening to Paul and I, they're listening to their peers. So I'm going to end with the student perspective. These are the skills that they tell us they have gathered from the course, where we have developed our own teaching this year. They now have SAQs in first year as well, so this is exactly the same. So they know what to expect in exams. And on the right hand side, we ask them things related to belonging and sense of well-being, and at first we're really disappointed that we hadn't seen a reduction in isolation of students. So dug into that and asked students directly why they thought that was, and actually what they reported was that they weren't isolated in the beginning. So since the this course has been running, they have a group of students that they automatically know, and therefore they have a sense of belonging. So they're not as isolated as they were. So this is a positive thing because they had nothing to compare it to. These are some of the testimonials of students and how they valued it. And lastly, I would just like to acknowledge my co-creators, Paul and Cara, and also Roy Chowdhury, for doing the data mining so we could identify the students and invite them to the programme. Thank you very much.